So Russell, we've got two kilns here at Highland Park, the old one and the new one. So how old is the old one?
Well, Jerry, the old kiln at Highland Park dates way back when the distillery was built, really. So you're in excess of 200 years. And the new kiln may be 150, 160 years old. So
That's not that new.
not very new, no. Steeped in the tradition of Highland Park.
Alright, so what we do here is basically we take peat we've cut and we stick it on here. So what can you tell us about the process? What actually is happening?
Well, in the kilning, very roughly, it's a two-stage process. It can be broken down into the two stages. The first part of kilning is really about the free drying moisture. So the moisture of the green malt upstairs will be in the region of 42%. We then dry that free moisture, which is mainly the moisture on the surface of the drying green malt, down to in the region of 22 to 25%. At Highland Park, it's not just about drying and removing that free moisture, it's also about imparting peat flavour to the malt, and that's a key component of Highland Park. Round about 22 to 25% moisture, at that point we'll then change from burning peat to burning coke, and then we're drying more of the moisture from the malt. It's really moisture within the malt at that stage, and that's we talk about the break point. And the break point of the kilning process is when really you're removing as much of the free moisture, the moisture that's surface moisture in the malt, right the way through the bed, until such times as the top of the bed temperature starts increasing and up to the air off temperature, and at that point we call it the break point. We then burn coke, and we increase the temperature then to 65 degrees. It's a more stable product, and the idea behind that is will damage the enzymes less at that temperature, and indeed that moisture, because the moisture is very, very important, not just for absorbing or adsorbing the peat flavours, phenols, but also the higher the moisture, the more sensitive the enzymes are within the drying process, and we need these enzymes for the next part of the process.
So we use peat to create the flavour, coke to dry it. And how long does that process take from start to finish? I mean, is it?
That can change, Jerry. At the moment, we're burning peat for 18 hours. And I say it can change because if the phenol levels of our malt change, and let's say they're lower than we really require, we will increase the peating regime, i.e. how long we'll burn the peat.
Right.
If the phenol levels conversely get too high in the malt, higher than we require, well then we'll cut some peat cycle down. So at the moment we're 18 hours,
Right.
burning at 60 degrees centigrade. Then we go to keep the burning with the coke to dry the moisture out of the malt, and we burn there at 65 degrees. Now that can it takes as long as it takes, quite honestly. We're really at the hands of Mother Nature then. Weather conditions, temperature of the wind, direction of the wind, all has an important part to play, because really remember it's completely manual. There is very, very little control here other than the expertise of the kilnman running the fire. So that drying period from 22 to 24% moisture down to 4% moisture can take 12 hours, but it could also take 24 hours. It really depends on the direction of the wind and the velocity of the wind and the temperature of the wind.
And what are we burning just now? What are we on just now?
This will be
Can we open the doors and
peat.
let everybody see?
Yep.
There we go.
This will be peat. The kilnman would have loaded the kiln this morning,
Right.
and the peat fire would have started around about 10:30 this morning. So that will process for 18 hours and progress for 18 hours, drying, as I said, the surface moisture away, and by the same token absorbing the peat flavours and the phenols onto the surface area of the malt, the green malt.
Okay. And then the smoke goes up to the barley floor upstairs.
Yes, if you can visualise the fires we used to have at home, this works on exactly the same principle, but obviously much, much larger.
Yeah.
The open fire here, the smoke from the open fire ascends up into the belly, if you like, of the kiln, the floor above.
Yeah.
And the floor above is sitting there with green malt. It's approximately 1.5 to 2 foot in depth. That smoke will dry the malt, but by the same token absorb onto the outside of the malt, and that's where we get the flavours, the beautiful phenolic flavours later on in the process.
Perfect.